The room that was never locked. If you enjoy these late night stories, please like and subscribe for future videos. Now, listen. The room that was never locked. No one asked whose room it was. A question hovered in the air for most of the night, unspoken but persistent, like the sound of wind moving through gaps in old wood. The inn had been standing there long enough to know that unanswered questions did not disappear. They only waited. The woman by the fire shifted slightly, crossing one ankle over the other. Her movements were careful, practiced, as if she had learned long ago that attention was something to manage rather than invite. Firelight traced the lines of her face, revealing age without softness. She watched the flames as though they were explaining something to her alone. The hooded man had not moved since the merchant returned from the stairs. His posture suggested patience, not fear. The kind of patience that came from knowing that time would eventually do the work for him. Behind the bar, the merchant poured himself another drink and did not touch it. His eyes drifted, again and again, toward the staircase. Each time, he looked away a little faster. The door upstairs remained open, not wide, just enough. Displaced long enough to recognize a night that would not resolve itself easily. Some storms passed by morning, others stayed in memory. Rooms, he said quietly, more to the fire than to the guest, don't usually forget themselves. The woman smiled, thin and unreadable. Neither do people. The merchant cleared his throat. It could be a draft. The hooded man shook his head once. Drafts don't break locks. That landed with weight. The fire answered with a low crack, as if acknowledging the truth of it. Time moved strangely after that. Not forward, sideways. The storm outside softened, then returned, then softened again, as if uncertain whether it works as finished. Snow slid down the windows in uneven patterns, briefly revealing the dark before covering it again. Inside, the air grew heavier, thick with warmth and unasked questions. At some point, the woman stood and approached the staircase. She did not climb it. She stopped at the bottom, resting one hand lightly on the banister. "You keep this place well," she said to the innkeeper. "I try." "Then you'll know," she continued, "that some rooms aren't meant for guests." The innkeeper said nothing. The hooded man finally looked up. Firelight caught his face just enough to reveal a scar near his mouth. Old and clean. The kind that came from intention rather than accident. "Some rooms," he said, "are meant to remember." The woman's hand tightened on the banister, only slightly. Near the middle of the night, when fatigue began to dull caution, the wind struck the inn harder than before. The building groaned, beams shifting in protest. For a brief moment, the lanterns flickered. The door upstairs moved, not opening further, not closing, just moving. The merchant stood abruptly, chair scraping loudly against the floor. "That's enough," he said. "This is ridiculous." He took 2 steps toward the stairs before stopping himself. No one else moved. The woman watched him carefully now. "If you're certain," she said, "you could close it." The merchant swallowed. "It's not my place." The hooded man leaned back, folding his arms. "That," he said, "is the most honest thing you've said tonight." Eventually, exhaustion forced action. The innkeeper took the lantern and began to climb the stairs. His steps were steady, but slower than before. The light cast long, untrustworthy shadows along the corridor. The guest watched from below. The door stood exactly as it had all night. The innkeeper pushed it open fully. The room was cold. Colder than the corridor. Colder than the night outside. The bed was untouched. Dust lay evenly across the floor. No footprints. No sign of recent use. Except for the lock. Broken inward, deliberately. The innkeeper did not touch it. He closed the door gently and turned the key that should not have worked. It did. When he returned downstairs, no one asked what he had seen. They already knew. The fire burned low now, steady and patient. The storm outside began to fade into silence, its purpose fulfilled. Morning arrived without ceremony. The woman left first. The merchant followed. The hooded man waited until last. At the door, he paused and looked back once, toward the staircase. "It opens," he said softly, "when someone believes they're done with it." Then he stepped into the snow. The innkeeper locked the door behind him. The room upstairs has remained closed ever since. At least, that's what he tells people. The innkeeper did not sleep after that. He sat behind the bar long after the fire had been reduced to embers, listening to the building settle into its older sounds. Wood contracting, stone holding, the kind of silence that did not belong to absence, but to restraint. Morning had come, yes, but the night had not entirely left. Some nights stayed behind, tucked into corners, waiting for someone careless enough to acknowledge them. He stood eventually and climbed the stairs again, this time without a lantern. The corridor was dim, lit only by the weak gray light leaking through the narrow window at the far end. The door at the end of it, the one that had been open all night, remained closed now. Locked, ordinary, almost convincing. He placed his hand on the wood. It was warmer than it should have been. He did not open it. Downstairs, the common room had emptied quickly. No one lingered. No one asked for breakfast. Plates remained untouched, mugs half full, as if the guests had agreed without speaking that hunger was less important than distance. By mid-morning, only the innkeeper remained, alone with the fire and the echo of footsteps already gone. He cleaned slowly, too slowly. Each motion felt deliberate, as if the room might object if rushed. When he swept near the base of the stairs, he found something that had not been there the night before. A glow, leather, dark, worn at the fingertips. He turned it over once in his hand, then again. It was neither the merchant's nor the woman's. Too small for one, too well kept for the other. He did not recognize it as his own. He set it on the bar. It stayed there all day. The storm did not fully clear. Snow stopped falling, but the sky remained low and heavy, as if unwilling to release what it had gathered. No new guests arrived. The road was technically passable, but no one trusted it. By evening, the inn felt larger without voices to fill it, its emptiness stretching in unfamiliar ways. The fire burned again, though it did not need to. The innkeeper kept it alive anyway. At dusk, the door opened, not violently, not cautiously, deliberately. The hooded man stood just inside the threshold, snow clinging to his cloak, his face uncovered now. The scar near his mouth caught the light again, but there was something else there too, something unsettled, as if he had expected the inn to refuse him. "You forgot this," he said, nodding toward the bar. The innkeeper did not look at the glow. "You left in a hurry." "Yes," the man replied. "That tends to happen." He stepped closer to the fire, extending his hands toward it without asking. The heat reached him slowly. He watched it with careful attention, as though checking something he had misplaced. "You didn't open the room," he said. "No." The men nodded once. "Good." They stood in silence for a time. Finally, the innkeeper spoke. "You said it opens when someone believes they're done with it." "Yes." "And if they aren't?" The man's mouth tightened slightly. "Then it waits." The fire shifted, sending a small spark upward. "Who was the letter for?" the innkeeper asked. The man did not answer immediately. When he did, his voice was quieter. "For the woman." The innkeeper looked up sharply. "She never opened it." "She didn't need to." The man retreated his glove from the bar and pulled it on slowly. Some messages aren't meant to be read. They're meant to arrive. He turned toward the stairs, then stopped. "She won't come back," he added. "But the room might open again." "For whom?" The man considered this. "For whoever mistakes relief for completion." Then he left. That night, the inn was quiet again. The fire burned low. The room upstairs remained closed. But just before dawn, when the innkeeper passed the staircase one last time, he noticed something different. The lock was intact. The door was not. It stood open, just enough, and the inn waited.